One rapper arrived prepared to throw. One hand threatened to place a gunshot in his body. These are the times. On camera, Charlamagne was examined. The Breakfast Club was approached by a Birdman, with his team prepared to examine Charlamagne for raving. About him. You were in a few places. I could have came up, but I didn't believe that was gangster. I wanted to come have a peek at you, like a man, and explain to you how I sense. This entire circumstance began a year prior. Birdman and Lil Wayne got into a heated argument about Birdman supposedly taking hostage Wayne's songs. When Charlamagne was requested to share by DJ Vladis opinions on the matter, he proceeded to make fun of Birdman using some outrageous, insulting remarks. Oh man, I mean, that must be painful. Lil Wayne must be the reason it hurts, has always been with baby. In a kisseral cavity. That is a distinct type of agreement. Later on, DJ Envy delivered the entire once more during a Rick Ross interview. Time. Me admiring Lil Wayne. Wayne was the first artist to accomplish so many things, not just as an artist, but one who originates from the southern region. I took something like that. Individual. The Breakfast
there for friendly chat.
This all straight telling all three of y'all stop playing with my name.
Let's go on there, let's go.
Stop playing with my name.
Let's do it on camera.
Stop playing with my name.
Club and Charlamagne maintained searching Birdman for dirt, even obtaining Trick Daddy to talk about him at he passed by the studio. Birdman fitness, some are good and some are harmful. I simply consider when, in an attempt to become a CEO, you tried to be a lady while you're a rapper.
A few places you was at, I could have pulled up, but I don't think that was gangster. I wanted to come looking.
You strive to be a girlfriend with a man. Following months of using his name,
trolling.
Did you pull up on Ross that?
Birdman's was finally given to the Breakfast Club. Focus in April of 2016. Additionally, from Thea's, soon as he entered the studio, with Birdman was obviously not with his crew. There to have a good conversation. Rather than allowing things to cool, Charlamagne completely changed the temperature.
Hey, you sounding like a hater lately, man. You put out 2 diss records, but then you was in the studio with me like 8 days prior to the first diss record. And I'm like, if anybody else did that, I think you'd be...
We were cursed out by him. Inform him. Tell Birdman.
The media and social media make up your mind. You going by from what you just said. You don't know what conversations transpired before that, what events transpired before that.
And let them get it off your chest. I must discuss because I don't comprehend the angle. Similar
buttons.
Cause I mean, just for me personally, when you say Meek not real, like, oh, Meek not a real person, he never been in the street, that's cool, but like 8 days prior.
Already. So why are you here? The tough-talking Charlamagne continued, until he was reminded by Birdman that he was not a gangster.
You wouldn't understand my world. You don't care.
A few locations you visited to give in to Birdman's
When Beanie said this,
play with something safe.
Pressure, but on his own land. Thus, he just began to trot, and Birdman became so angry that he got to his feet and departed under 2 minutes into the interview. However, as Charlamagne and their fighting years were squashed by Birdman. Later, that wasn't the final instance. An original rapper checked Charlamagne. Charlamagne's attempt to harass Beanie Sigel for taking on opposing roles throughout the conflict between the...
You can start with all that though, shit. This dude right here, man, like let that be what it's gonna be, so like you bring it up
the game and Meek Mill, he was examined quickly. Beanie informed him of his ineligibility to discuss the subject, but Charlamagne...
The guy got killed later on, but it wasn't because of Beanie.
That shit was mad funny.
Carl was crazy.
Simply refused to drop it, but after less than 2 minutes, Charlamagne brought it up once more, evidently attempting to press button. Beanie initially kept it calm, but
You brought shit up that I ain't like, and it's I don't like. I ain't no.
I ain't say you was, but you
Don't
said
play
it.
me like that.
when Beanie, Charlamagne continued to prod the bear, informed him that he is not
Get on with the
I don't know what you want me to do.
You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing. That's what I'm saying. You can't do nothing.
a plaything. Incident that Charlamagne was terrified, particularly when Beanie stated, even though that was insane, It's not even as intense as the heat that filled up the studio in Charlamagne's honor. And the following rapper got involved over some insulting remarks. In 2014, renowned rappers Frederick Starr and The Breakfast was joined by Sticky Fingers show to discuss vintage rap tales. However, after only 5 minutes of the interview, Charlamagne changed things up by introducing spreading tales regarding Frederick's history connection to Brandy. Interview 3-59405. The question didn't resonate with Fredro, and he attacked Charlamagne right away, mentioning the moment he was thrown into the streets and fled. The two were able to get together quickly, with Fredo all in each other's faces communicating to Charlamagne that he didn't like when he mentions the Brandy circumstance. Why are we having a problem, buddy? 39. Additionally, when Charlamagne began...
What? Because you were introduced as a musical artist. So a comeback would be another monster hit in 2018. That's why they say Tiger had the biggest comeback, because he came back.
Speaking, Fredero had to remind him that he's tough, genuinely about that life. In relation to crash outs,
Respect it, y'all ain't gotta like me. I ain't did nothing to nobody my whole career, bro. Y'all ignored me, bro. Y'all laughed at me, bro, and shit on me, bro, like I was nothing. And now
this upcoming rapper additionally examined Charlamagne when he doubted the veracity of his own hood. After that, the entire beef began. The Migos
turned out that it was just shares that were valued at 2.5 million.
well, millions is millions, bound baby.
No, soldier. Millions is not.
Chat with Charlamagne in 2021, when he inquired about who they believed to be the best Atlanta-based rappers. Discussed the Mount Rushmore of Atlanta, as I observed you all conversing regarding that. Is that an all-time high list that you all believe you ought to be on only the last 10 years? Not just the city, but everyone, but time. However, when DJ Envy recommended that Soulja Boy was worthy of being included on the Charlamagne, wasn't at ATL Mount Rushmore possessing it. No, Atlanta's Soulja. Soulja Boy refused to allow that to happen. Glide through. He leaped on it right away.
5 million albums.
That's a lot of people did.
Yeah. I mean, but do you feel the effects of that, though? Like as an artist?
I mean, I think everybody in the entertainment feel the effects of when they...
Charlamagne being called out live on Instagram for disregarding him and attempting to disparage his heritage. Wherever you are.
You know, if it's something you're trying to get to, just get to it. You know, like I said, we retainers, bro. Just say what you mean what you say.
No, I don't want to.
You're not from your mother, stated. Don't talk on the number. Soulja wasn't the first to get Charlamagne's involvement because earlier, he had to defend him.
I had a scary moment. Well, you know what? In the studio, it wasn't scary, but it was, oh yeah, this could go left.
Himself in 2019, following Charlamagne's attempt to make fun of him for asserting that his comeback was the greatest of the year prior. Interview 557-605. Soulja refused to let him to undercut. But his accomplishments like that.
Your projects is y'all was dropping. It was a time where No Limit was dropping every week. It was a No Limit product in stores every week. Except for Mercedes, we never saw that, and I always wanted to see that.
Notifying Charlamagne right away, he doesn't like to be played with. Interview 6-13-6-22. But Charlamagne had no intention of give up so quickly as he persisted in pressuring. Regarding the $400 million deal, Draco stated that they signed in 2016. Interview 631-639. The interview.
You know, we need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the first thing. Because I know you do your radio thing, and I respect that, but at the same time, Mercedes.
You ultimately became the second most viewed episode of Breakfast Club. However, this subsequent episode didn't exactly go viral. It continues to be recognized as one of the most hazardous. When Nelly entered in 2012, the Breakfast Club studio, it was impossible for anyone to foresee that Charlamagne would be shaken. The talk began without incident, but it didn't take Charlamagne long to create
boycott of Netflix, claiming race and gender bias because she was offered $500,000 to do a comedy special, and she feels like that was
some derogatory remarks regarding Nelly's profession, asserting that he dropped away. At one point,
and then I found out that I had become Donkey of the Day.
Yes.
By Leonard. And I gotta call you by your name, baby.
Nelly, you said, the world's largest rapper. The situation has evolved. All right? You know, You're a little aloof music.
Why did you feel like, you should have gotten whatever Chris Rock got, whatever Dave Chappelle got?
It's outside. You believe so then? Come on, I mean. Yes, he did.
So your grandmother, could they tell me stories of inequality that they had to deal with?
Absolutely.
So would your mother be a donkey?
No.
Would your grandmother?
Didn't want to, but Nelly was furious. Intensify matters just yet. Charlamagne, however, they were unsure about.
Bernard, you've got to be careful with your words, because you called your sister donkey of the day, but you
when to halt, and continued attempting to sneak beneath his skin. However, when Nelly finally had enough, he didn't need to speak louder to let. Charlamagne was aware that he had also taken items. Since Charlamagne disliked smoking, he dropped it. However, around 10 years later,
this is not right. I was donkey of the day. Remember that? I was donkey of the day. The breakfast nubs called me the
later, he acknowledged that Nelly made him tremble when he said that. However, that is insignificant in comparison to the time. Another OG pressed Charlamagne. Street cred rapper for
Apology.
I apologize, Monique, for giving you donkey of the day, because once again, regardless of how I felt about the situation when you were in Netflix, I had no business in your business and broadcasting.
For showing disdain for a female rapper under his name. Master P was on the show to discuss at the new music festival. The artist just dropped. However, Charlamagne had different plans in mind than everyone in the studio.
Who was from Brooklyn, because like you guys, you
Clark
all
Kent,
guys
Clark Kent.
are tight.
You really still curious about the Jersey?
Absolutely.
You don't know the story?
Curious. Nah, we want you to tell the story.
Let me ask you a question.
Dame
Theo
reminder.
was aware of the remark. P had to check him because he was out of pocket swift.
It's different because we're on a different scale.
Is this a Harlem Queens thing? Like Harlem Queens don't get along?
It's not. Let me ask you a question. Okay, but let's be men, right?
Barely 15 minutes.
Charlamagne attempted to get over the discussion. However, Master P wasn't about to give him such a light sentence.
Stuff, they resent you for that. They want to kill you because they want to be the boss. If a man doesn't want to be the boss, then he's not a real man. Every real man wants to be a boss. Who do the girls like?
However, setting it up in terms of promotion. What do you mean by setting up? Because it was falling.
One of them that put their own dough up. A boss, you're only the boss if you put up your own money. If you don't put up your own money, I don't care how much somebody gives you, you're nothing but a supervisor. It's not yours.
They were falling each week. Thus, how did humans manage to understand? All right. Was
I'm saying, so you're speaking my business and you don't know what you're talking about. I ain't take no money from Def Jam. What you talking about?
They cut you a
No,
check.
they ain't.
unless she intended to. He informed him right away that he couldn't speak to a woman such as that. Education Charlamagne as a son sustaining women, who could also forget when Charlamagne was taught by this renowned comic after awarding her the day's donkey. Returning Monique got heated at Netflix in 2018 for giving her a chump-changed event, featuring comedy when other comedians were obtaining large bags. Then she summoned a boycott and Charlamagne for
Y'all trying to play me. Y'all ain't let my people up neither, bro. Where the breakfast at? Where the breakfast? Where the breakfast at?
Although Charlamagne and the crew
some
were
reason took to the microphone to scold her for attempting to use a personal grudge as a racial dispute. Have you not heard? Interview.
You can blow my candy.
I bet you if it was a birthday cake, you'd have blew it out faster.
sure it looked like it was staged.
4. Monique refused to accept that, however. The following time she appeared on the show, she needed to inform Charlamagne how she was feeling, and you would assume that Charlamagne would concede. Currently, he was in direct contact with Monique, yet he made the decision to step up, wondering why she believed she was entitled to more than what was given to her. However, Monique called and read him to dirt. He uses his official name to
fatherhood the way the NBA's Nikola Jokic treats the NBA. You ever hear Joker talk about basketball at the same level that don't give a F that NBA Jokic has about basketball, NBA YoungBoy seems to have about being a...
YB didn't like
the bring home the point, interviewed throughout, requesting that Charlamagne show some deference, like a mother reprimanding her son on her name. In the end, Monique pulled Netflix to court for letting her down. And she did. She refuses to speak, so get a hefty check.
When Charlamagne saw the video, he dismissed it like it
in addition to a legitimate Netflix special that was released in 2023. However, despite everything, Furthermore,
That's the beauty of being 45 years old and being born in 1978. Number one, I ain't going to no place called Gravedigger Mountain.
This ain't the first time Charlamagne got
Charlamagne never truly expressed regret for interfering in her affairs, until she reprimanded him during an Shannon Sharp A's. Monique placed him and the entire That's the Morning Club on blast. Charlamagne realized he needed to make
Yes, he is. It happens. No. It happens every few years. It was Trinidad James at one point.
Yachty played it cool, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt to be called
amends. Thus, in February 2024, 6 years following the first event, Charlamagne at last provided AA well-earned apologies. Charlamagne didn't know who, but to apologize, this criminal rapper. Since Dame first debuted as a back in the breakfast.
You talking about from a musical perspective? Okay, all right, okay. No, he had a great year in business. Okay. And that's why I'm putting him on this list.
So when Charlamagne tried to backtrack on what he said the following
club as a guest, he arrived in 2015 with all the smoke and nearly had an altercation with DJ.
Why y'all say that? When do we not show Yachty love?
Well, you know, it's just.
I've never came at Yachty.
In his defense,
envy over some Jay-Z chatter interview. 11:37 or 11:47 Dame reminded him that he had inquired about.
You knew what I was saying.
Charlamagne said.
And that was wrong. I was saying that that's how people perceive you.
Speaking of new school rappers,
he didn't want to talk about it before. About it no more. Interview 11:52:12:01 less than 15 minutes into the interview. Game Dash chose to attack them because working for someone else, instead of putting money into themselves. Interview 12:09 to 12:19. There was still plenty of fight left in Dame, and he promptly informed Charlamagne that he had the money to support the rhetoric. Interview 12:26, 12:37. It was pointed out by Charlamagne that a few years ago, Jam did give him a large check. Dame began crashing out.
How you beat that?
I
mean, you didn't do it. Clearly.
You're gonna beat it if you didn't do it, that's all.
That's expensive.
Towards the end of the interview, Charlamagne kept pressing Vaughn.
A long time ago. Interview 12:45 to 12:52. Dame refused to allow Charlamagne to disregard his hustle. Thus, he made sure he was speedy. Performance-based formula, and they computed. We were compensated, and they put an end to it. We're not like that. No. We pay attention. Pryor, before us Game, kept the conversation going while making his point. However, this other man had an entire, an alternative Breakfast Club strategy crew upon his arrival at the studio. In contrast to all these other situations where Fat Charlamagne was examined on camera. In fact, the boys' interview went well until, upon learning that the Breakfast Club doesn't offer breakfast in reality. Interview 13:22, 13:32. While Charlamagne and the staff was taken aback when he
them concessions. See? I said water boy. That's like.
Oh, while DJ Envy did ask someone.
He returned, knew he wasn't threatening. No one. Rather, he was burned by almost everyone in the studio. Interview 13:41 to 13:47. Indeed, it appeared to have been set up for.
I don't think so.
And then out of nowhere, Charlamagne asks the most out of
substance. But some individuals think it's true. Furthermore, Fat Boy.
Is that a serious question?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If anything.
You could tell everybody was uncomfortable throughout the interview.
He later stated that his people attested to the existence of breakfast. However, even though this specific, the incident was humorous.
Got you.
I don't know.
I would have just said nothing.
I mean, honestly.
He even brought his girlfriend into the conversation, trash talking.
And no one harmed giggling when the next rapper vowed to strike Charlamagne with his Draco. Everything began in January 2024. Charlamagne's designation of YB as the donkey of the day, after he made reference to Kev in a bootleg interview that didn't appeal to him. Being a father is crazy because he has 11 children.
And on the internet.
I will say you handled that.
Charlamagne, on the other hand, didn't mince words the next time he talked about Post.
One of whom was even with him during the interview. Interview 14, 16, 14, 27. The fact that Charlamagne was uttering his name in that manner. Thus 3. He boarded the STU a few days later and released a diss song called Act a Donkey, Charlamagne's invitation to his hood in Gravedigger Mountain to facilitate communication directly. And he can strike him with his, and left him a message. On Draco's Instagram interview, 1445, upon viewing the video, Charlamagne brushed it off as if it didn't exist. However, that did not
Dude, clear that up. I want to be clear about that. You didn't date the guy.
No.
Burr wasn't going to let that slide, though, immediately going on a full-on roast of Charlamagne.
Implied that he would accept YB, accepted his offer as even he was aware of how.
Like, I'm gonna sit here and act like you're all good over there. Like, you don't swing a leg over the fence every once in a while.
Bill Burr said his piece and moved on, but when Charlamagne tried to...
That would be risky. Interview 14, 59, 15. 08 Charlamagne has done this before. Encountered issues with the latest generation rappers, however. Lil Yachty had just arrived. The match when he arrived at the Breakfast Club in 2017. However, Charlamagne had previously determined that he didn't prefer him, and he made that clear right from the beginning of the interview. Youngster.interview 1524, 1534. Although Yachty kept a low profile, that didn't implying that being called a whack didn't hurt.
You ain't really black. We don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump. It seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part.
Who could also forget when Charlamagne got checked by another rapper after he tried to...
Rapper in front of him. In addition to the Charlamagne's repetition of the same something later on in a Joe podcast button, Charlamagne and Joe were creating a ranking of the 5 most prominent trash artists of when Joe made the decision to place Yachty's, Charlamagne's name at the top.
Like, in our culture, we grew up off certain words and not speaking for him. Ask Rick Ross that.
Throughout the interview, it was almost like they were trying to trip him up, especially...
I agree, interview 1553, 1604. Thus, when Charlamagne attempted to retreat regarding his remarks the subsequent year, Yachty
on this big corporate radio station and start talking some crazy shit, what will happen to your check?
But Meek was smart enough to turn the tables on Charlamagne.
Don't ask me.
He called Hubert Toos right away to the bullshit.
Just like he did when Charlamagne dropped some info no one was supposed to know out of nowhere.
1611 to 1620. However, Charlamagne asserted that his remarks were removed from background. Yachty, however, was not hearing none of that.
And everybody knows how hard it is to get Charlamagne lost for words. If you like videos like these, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
8. Speaking among rappers from the new school, Vaughn and Lil Durk had to include Charlamagne as well. After he attempted to trip them up, check in their own words. Van just returned from the Then Slammer, signed to the label that Durk records under, Only the Family, and was preparing to publish his first crazy story, Son. The interview was momentarily straight as Charlamagne kept the discussion centered on the music. For what reason did you decide to sign King Van? Because he has an entire backstory. Do you understand what I mean? He's from O Black. All right, do you understand what I mean? That ought to speak for themselves. No, however, Van wasn't media like Durk was, trained at that period, therefore it was simple to force him to reveal. Additionally, from the type of you could tell he was asking questions. His goal was to get Van into trouble. Interview 1719 to 1729 A's. The interview came to a close. Vaughn was repeatedly pressed by Charlamagne, discussing his incarceration. That's it. Why is that? Because he is able to employ individuals such as Sheem. Of course. Do you understand what I mean? Everyone know. Where else? Most likely. For a while, Durk was okay with him. When Charlamagne pressed it, however, too much, he intervened. Have you ever been found guilty of a dead star case? To have no experience is to do nothing. I'm not, you are aware. Okay. Word. Everyone was aware of Durkio's cough, intended. Thus, after a few minutes, Charlamagne concluded the conversation. However, the King Von interview was far worse. It wasn't. His worst encounter. Conversation with a rapper who was just starting out. Because Charlamagne did so in August of 2015, an extremely nasty interview, it was removed from the channel. Following White Iverson's SoundCloud drop in 2015, Post Malone made a great deal of publicity, forcing him into the commonplace. However, as he took a seat for Ann in the Breakfast Club interview, you realize they weren't genuinely interested in him. There, since they began the program by clowning at his father's workplace. Interview 1828, 1835. However, DJ Envy did pose several crucial. Charlamagne simply kept trying to answer his questions. To place Posty in a challenging situation by focusing the entire interview on his race, attempting to elicit from him the using the N-word, and suggesting that he was a vulture of culture. Interview 1851-1859. Then, unexpectedly, Charlamagne posed the most unconventional query. Never. Interview 1904-1913. You could see that everyone was uneasy during the interview. Having post-rambling, he didn't wish to say something incorrectly. Interview 1920-1929. Even his girlfriend joined him in the dialogue, trash-talking their connection. The interview concluded with receiving so much criticism that it has to be taken out of the waterway. However, when Posty returned for another interview, he was not treated by Charlamagne superior to the initial one. Post was unable to give Charlamagne a clear retort because he was a kind man. However, he did speak about the problem later on in an interview with Discredit Diddy. Interview 1951-1958. In contrast, Charlamagne didn't. The next time he spoke, he didn't mince words. Regarding Post being direct in saying that he detested the man. Even years later, he continued to complain about how he wanted to remove him from the rap game, referring to him as a phony future. Charlamagne was able to escape punishment for this one in part because of Post Malone simply ignored him going forward. However, he attempted to dunk on the renowned comedian. He was reprimanded in real time. Everyone is aware that Bill Burr is the last individual you wish to disturb. He knows how to put, but he doesn't play, a man in his stead. In March 2024, Bill Burr made an appearance as a visitor on The Breakfast Club and found himself in the center of an account of how he first met his wife, when Charlamagne chose to make it strange. Interview 2038-2046. But I wasn't going to overlook that, launching into a full-on roast of Charlamagne. Interview 2051-2101. Bill Burr finished speaking and went on. However, Charlamagne attempted to push this radio host and politician by interrogating. Larry changed the story since he was black on him before he had a chance to blink. Returning to Larry appeared on the show in August 2023 to about his aspirations to become president. Additionally, even if he had some back and forth with Charlamagne,